listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So, neat story, friends. I went to the doctor and got some blood work results. And I walked in and my doctor was like, so are you like extremely exhausted and like having shortness of breath? And I was like thinking about it, like really thinking about it for like a minute. I was like, yeah, I guess I am like requiring, like 2 naps a day and a little short of breath. And I just presumed it was post-COVID stuff and that I was like really overworked because I'm working on a lot of stuff. And she was like, oh yeah, no, your hemoglobin levels are dangerously low because your iron is so low.
Oh,
and
boy.
there's
Wow.
a medical reason that I'm so tired. So that's a thrill.
But your iron levels have always been on the low side.
Iron levels have never been great, and particularly when I was having extremely heavy menstruation issues. And then last June, I finally had something that, like, I finally got the right insertion birth control thing or whatever, where they stab a little tiny thing in your arm and you don't have a period anymore, which was great. Love that. And so that like sort of fixed things that had been going wrong for like a long time. And so I thought, because I'm obviously a doctor, I could just stop taking my iron supplements because my body would fix itself. It would be fine.
It's good to diagnose
No.
yourself. That's very smart. I bet that's
I do it-
recommended everywhere.
I do it all the time and it's a terrible thing. And if anybody else did it, I'd be like, you're so stupid.
But when you do it yourself,
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep,
DIY
yep.
medical care. I've never heard that recommended.
I mean, I don't. And I believe in science and stuff. I just was like, yeah, no, I mean, obviously my iron will just replenish itself naturally. I am, it's been ages since I was a vegetarian. I'm getting enough iron. I'm not. So, and you have to like actually get back to sort of like relatively okay levels of iron before you can decide that you don't need supplements anymore. Anyway, so I went for my first iron infusion and that was an adventure. And they were like, so just a heads up, some people have a reaction to it.
Oh,
Or you might get like really tired and feel inflamed everywhere. And I don't know, there's like some other stuff, headache, whatever. And I'm one of the people that has a reaction. So I fell asleep mid-sentence. Like I snored myself awake mid-sentence in a conversation with Carlos. And I was like, I felt like I had a sinus infection in my whole body. And that lasted for like an evening into the next day. And I'm now a few days like post-treatment and I feel much better. I won't have like replenished hemoglobins and iron levels for, I think they said it would take a couple weeks. And it'll be a full 4 to 5 weeks before I have to go for new blood work to see like how much it's taken effect. But my doctor was like, oh my God, you are not even going to realize how tired you've been until this infusion takes effect.
Wow.
I'm very excited to think that I've been operating at 10% capacity for the last like however long and to like even just be able to like maybe go up to like 40% capacity. It's a game changer, you guys. I'm going to be like full of life.
I always imagined that it's the hemogoblins that take you, but I know it's globins. But there's something about imagining hemoglobin or goblins stealing your energy.
Well, the hemogoblins are hungry, apparently.
Yes.
So they might eat up all the iron first. And so then I could have to go for another infusion because it won't raise my iron levels because if the hemogoblins get them.
Yes.
Then
we don't want the hemogoblins to get you.
So what did Carlos think when you just fell asleep in mid-sentence? sentence. Like,
Well, I mean, he wasn't that surprised.
like,
He barely noticed because I woke myself up. I woke myself up pretty fast.
Like,
so
must have been a pretty boring conversation for you.
I mean,
to
honestly,
just, like, nod off.
we could have been discussing like the greatest thing in the history of the world, and I still would have fallen asleep. Like, it just was. It felt like I was drugged. And I guess I was, because my hemoglobins were getting their feet on.
There were.
That's what was happening.
That's what they do. You
Yeah.
let them,
Well,
let
a friend
them
of
go
mine-
and they come and get you.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was walking home like late at night from a concert once and like just passed out while walking in the street, like fainted, and woke up there the next morning.
On the street? You're
And-
still there?
my
Yeah,
God.
on this lying on the street the next morning.
Oh my God.
Still there. And she went to the doctor and turned out her iron was just
Holy
crazy low.
catfish.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I've
I'm-
never heard of anything like that.
I'm lucky that I'm not a fainter, honestly, like, because, yeah. I'm either not a fainter or I'm like just so sedentary in the pandemic that I have not walked long enough to cause myself to faint. But either way, neat.
Either way. Yeah, neat. Oh, well, I'm glad you're on the mend. That's the important part.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to think that like I could be like all fully ironed up and
Pumping iron. To quote
start
Arnold
2023.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Start 2023 with like just this fully capable, system.
Well, it's exciting
this
that
is-
you
so this
report
is-
back next podcast and tell us how you're doing.
Well, we'll notice
We'll
because she'll be
notice, yeah.
like 10% more energetic.
Hello!
Yeah.
Jazz hands out all the time.
Yeah, I'll be like channeling like, I don't know, like Robin Williams meets like a speed freak or something. Like that's going to be my energy.
But so this is kind of adjacent, but it reminded me of this news story I read last week about how the European Medicines Agency Committee has recommended adding heavy menstrual bleeding to the side effects of mRNA vaccines,
Oh, great.
COVID vaccines.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Fantastic.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, I've
heard a lot of people talking about that.
I had
Yeah,
heard about
yeah,
it too.
yeah, me
and
too.
and I will say, like, with my first vaccine, my very first vaccine, I did notice that I had, like, even though I was like just nonstop bleeding at that point, I still noticed like a heavier period thanks to it. So
It's hard to, I mean, I've had 4 boosters now,
uh-huh.
plus a flu shot. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what to expect.
What
I've
do you
had
mean?
COVID. I don't know what, like, here you were being asked a very simple question about whether or not
Like,
you felt
do you-
tired and
Yeah.
like, how do you know anymore what you're supposed to feel like?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
I honestly could not tell you. I completely understand. Like, yeah, I could not tell you like a
What's
real
the norm?
honest
What
assessment
is the
of like,
absolute norm we're supposed to be
Yeah.
at right now?
yeah. Like, what's my base level?
Yeah.
No clue.
Yeah.
No clue.
Yeah, because like a lot of the things, like especially you, Adubs, like used to go to like 3 or 4 things a day sometimes,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
events.
No, for
And I
sure.
just like can't even imagine, like I can't even get up the energy to even think of doing like, more than one event in a day. Like it's weird, but then I think like maybe if I just did it and like I'd just be able to do it. Like who knows? I don't know anymore. You're right, Lisa.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it's like about normalization, right? Like, so like this now being home more has been normalized. And so this is what we know. But like immediately if there was like a full like vaccine that could effectively neutralize COVID and we were able to sort of like go back to quote unquote normal life within, I think, a month, we would be able to resume some of our previous, sort of activities and be more social again. Like I'm not like but I do think like there would be a change just because like we've all grown differently in the last like 3 years. Like it's been, as much as it's been like a global pandemic that affects everyone, there are certainly more people who have been more deeply affected and people who've had to do like frontline stuff and like be out there working every day. And like, it's just a radically different environment for them than like people who've been able to work from home. And I just like, I think those are the bigger changes that like, just hard to know how to answer the question, how's your general health or how's your general mental health?
Yeah.
Because
or
they've
how
all
are you
fused
feeling?
together in a
No, I
way
don't
that
know what
like,
I'm supposed to feel like anymore. I don't know what my drive is supposed to be. I mean, I know, like you said, you're lucky to work from home, and we were lucky to work from home. But now being back at work, you're kind of like, did I like being at home better? Do I like being at work? Do I socialize still the same way with the work colleagues that I used to? Has what I want out of life completely changed? Okay, that really jumped ahead. Sorry about that. That got a bit big.
but I think that that's like, those are all like really valid questions that a lot of people are absolutely wrestling with. And I also still think that like there's an element of like, you know, because we are still removed from, again, a quote unquote like sort of baseline of normal for everyone. Like I think maybe like if we really take the opportunity, we can understand better like the various levels of privilege that we all have. And I mean, that's not going to be a global lesson that like COVID teaches us, but I hope that for a lot of us, that is one takeaway. Because like, you know, just even being able to think about like what our normal could be is sort of something I don't want to take for granted. You know, like I know there's a lot of other people who are just in pure survival mode who like are never going to really be able to totally ask themselves this question.
There's a certain amount of people, like I've noticed too, that have made dramatic changes to their lives. Like they've, quit their jobs.
Booked it to Quesnel.
Yeah. Moved to a different city.
Yeah. Become completely different people. Yeah. No, it's, I don't know. And do you want to return back to what you were before, or do you want to take on this new identity? These are big questions.
Yeah. I know that I would like to carry some of the lessons with me into like whatever the future is.
Do you see yourself going back to like going out that as much as you were before?
No, never.
Wow.
I don't think I was actually like happy. I think I was just busy.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, I was happy to a certain extent, but I was also in like hardcore hustle mode all the time. And like, I was exhausted, and like, I am a social creature. I am probably an extrovert with some introvert tendencies, but I don't think it was functional. Like, and it wasn't sustainable. And I knew that. I knew I was going to burn out at some point.
You would burn out occasionally with a good flu or a good cold.
Well, yes. And if that's how your body is the only way of getting you to like sit down is to break down, that's not really great. No. So I know that I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. Like that much I do know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And then I find when I've gone out to things, it's like, it's different now because like you have all these other things that you're thinking about, like, oh, I don't want to get too crowded, or I gotta wear my mask when I'm, in this room with like, and it seems that people are going to start getting close. Like you just have all these things that you're thinking about now, like every time you go out to any kind of gathering that just sort of, I don't know, it just makes it a little less pleasurable.
And whenever you do go out, you feel like you dodged a bullet, which is not a good feeling.
Yeah. That's not, it's not a game of Frogger every time you leave the house.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Or, like if you notice someone, I've heard people say like they've been in a crowd or on a plane or in a movie theater and heard someone nearby starting to cough.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
And then your mind is just like.
Yeah, you're imagining the little germs flying through the air and just running right up your nose. I know. Yeah.
And I do also think like having been someone who had not had COVID until just this past September and then having it, and now being someone who's like finally had it, like again, lots of privilege in there, but like it's the anticipation of getting it and not knowing if it would be the COVID that would potentially kill me. That's like a lot, like, and once you've had it and then you're lucky enough that it didn't kill you, it's a real mind twist. Like it's just something that, you never, at least I had never anticipated that this would be the thing where I would live in mortal fear of a flu-like thing.
Mm-hmm. It makes you think about like the sort of randomness of life.
Yes.
Just how some people are deeply impacted and some people aren't. and it's luck.
And
I mean-
also, you don't often know when you're going to decide to kill your brother-in-law.
I mean,
That too.
I'm not gonna, I'm gonna backtrack out of that completely.
We don't want this podcast to be used as evidence in court.
Evidence in a future trial?
we don't want
No.
that. This is
No,
not a true
just
crime
teasing.
podcast. If you are listening to this expecting something, this is not.
Just teasing. Just teasing. I mean, I'm just going to say, like, one, if we all wore masks, it wouldn't be a matter of luck as to who lives and who dies. Two, if people weren't monstrous, abusive jerks, maybe they wouldn't get killed.
Fair. I think that's a fair assumption.
That's a lot of ifs.
Yeah.
A lot of ifs. I'm Andrea Warner,
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
and you're listening to Pop This, here with the hot takes on COVID and killing abusive husbands.
Yes. And brother-in-laws. And
What a
weirdos.
combination. Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
Yeah, exactly. And we are talking about, in case it hasn't been clear, Bad Sisters. And this is one of those shows that got to me through word of mouth. I hadn't heard anything about it, but I was at a party and someone said, "You've got to be watching it." And they did that thing where it wasn't like a casual, "Hey, here's what I've been watching. You've got to watch it." And then I watched it. And then I told two people, and so on and so on and so on. And luckily for me, I get to bring it to our podcast.
Yay. Yeah, I had heard about it, but I had put it on the back burner for like, I'm going to get to this at some point. But then you said, no, it must be now. And I said, okay, well, then it must be now. And honestly, gratitude to you and this podcast for sometimes speeding up the process with which I consume new media.
Same.
Because otherwise I might have left this for a long time, and I'm so glad I didn't.
This show is, kind of helped justify my continuing Apple Plus, TV Plus subscription.
Yes.
Because
every time you think you're leaving,
I look at it and I'm like, I haven't watched anything on here since Pachinko. Like, what am I doing? But looks like I'm locked in for a little longer.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
I love it so much. I can read the background if you like.
Sure, yeah.
Bad Sisters, originally titled Emerald, is an Irish black comedy television series developed by Sharon Horgan, Dave Finkel, and Brett Baer. Set in Dublin, it is based on the Flemish series Clan, which was created by Malin Sarah Gozen. The series was filmed in Ireland, and the first 2 episodes aired on August 19th, 2022. Apple Television renewed the series for a second season on November 8th, 2022. Good job.
That's
Apple.
interesting. I wonder if the Clan will be available somewhere for us to watch too, because I'd be interested.
Yeah,
in seeing
I
the
would
original.
be too.
Apparently it's from 2012 and it aired in Belgium. It's a Flemish series, but apparently it aired in Belgium. Anyway, I don't know where it exists exactly now, but I feel like we could find it if we really put our minds to it.
It strikes me as something they would want to have come out, and so we can do the compare contrast. But neither one of you have got to the end though, right?
No, I've
I
only
have.
watched the first 2 episodes.
I've seen the whole thing.
Oh, you have seen the whole thing.
You watched the
Okay.
whole thing? Okay. Guys, don't spoil it for me. I've only watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah,
Only the
I'll
first 2.
try.
Well, I'm going to kill you both.
I was glad to watch something that's set in Dublin because I feel like I don't often watch TV set there, and it's kind of Ireland's such a beautiful place. The accents are so nice to listen to. I just found like that whole part of it really pleasant, like the backdrop to the story.
Yeah, it was really
it's
nice to
gorgeous.
see something completely different, a different locale, because you do get pretty used to seeing the same New York, Vancouver, Los Angeles, is the Holy Trinity, Toronto.
Or even
I guess.
like a lot of like British stuff, you
Yeah.
see a lot of stuff set in England, but not in Ireland.
And
for
it was
me
really
anyway.
beautiful. the places
Yeah, it's
they
so
filmed.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was Dublin actually while we were watching it. I was wondering if they were like in a different town, but like I know obviously like part of the filming is in Dublin for sure. But it is I loved going to Ireland. I had the like pleasure of going in 2017. So lucky, and it was so beautiful, and we drove all over like a huge part of it, and it's gorgeous.
It is.
It's
I
a
was
lot
just
like
there
well,
this summer. So yeah, it was
oh
beautiful.
yeah, of course.
Yes.
It's a lot like BC though. Did you
Yeah.
find like
Yeah,
I thought it was like, oh, there's like green everywhere. This is nice. I like
Yeah.
it.
But what I liked about it is just like, because it's like talking, you get to see into like an average person's like home, you know, like their neighborhood, how they live and stuff. Like I'm interested in seeing like the insides of houses in different countries. Just to see
I know.
like
Yeah.
what people's lives are like.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Does one of you want to read the synopsis?
Sure, I can do it. After their brother-in-law, John Paul, dies under unexpected circumstances, the Garvey sisters, Eva, Grace, Ursula, Bibi, and Becca, find themselves at the center of a life insurance investigation. The series flips between timelines, one before John Paul's death, in which Eva, Ursula, Bibi, and Becca plot to murder John Paul for his treatment of Grace, and one after John Paul's death, in which a determined insurance agent tries to prove the sisters' malicious involvement to save his struggling business.
Yeah.
I really love that there's a parallel dynamic of sibling relationships in both of these separate storylines, like the Garvey sisters and then the half brothers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. And family, because the guy's wife is pregnant.
Yeah,
And you know that there's all those ties that bind, their discussion about their father and what he left them. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is a real family show.
Yeah, and just like she says you don't get to choose your brother-in-law, but you also don't get to choose your family.
Yes.
I mean, obviously we all have chosen family aspects too. And that's meaningful, but you know, you don't really get to choose who you're biologically related to. And what a steep cliff that can sometimes be.
The other thing I really liked about this show is that it's one of those shows that just starts off the ground and you've got to start trying to pick up what's going on. And to say, well, John Paul's dead, you'd be tempted to go, no, don't spoil it. But that's the first thing you see is
him in a coffin and his post-mortem erection.
Yeah.
My favorite beginning to a series ever.
Yeah.
Maybe this might be of just just the indignities of death. I love the opening credit sequence.
Oh yeah, that's PJ Harvey and the Leonard Cohen song. Yeah,
but also just like the
It's
eyeball
so
and how, again, I've only seen the 2 episodes, but how an eyeball factors into like, it seems like a lot of stuff, since one of the sisters wears an eye patch and has obviously had some kind of eye injury that, like, in some manner John Paul is responsible for, but we don't know exactly yet. Well, you two know, but don't tell me.
Yeah.
The soundtrack in general for the show
music
really
is a big part of this show, really big.
Yeah.
And the second episode, like, focuses so much on Lizzo. I love it. I love it so much.
Oh yeah. And did we all know that the youngest sister is Bono's daughter?
Oh
No.
wow! I didn't.
Becca. Yeah, that's Bono's daughter.
So who's that? Becca?
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Speaking of music. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a tie-in. I mean, historically, we know this. We've talked about this on the podcast. Love macabre things that are like and very dark in humor. I love to pull comedy from just horrific circumstances. That's not everyone's cup of tea. How did you two feel about that aspect
I mean,
of
Lisa, historically, you haven't enjoyed black comedy.
Well, I like a
much.
black comedy when we can talk about the criticisms of making John Paul too evil, which somebody brought up, and I included that review in our notes here. But I find having a really easy enemy makes the black comedy work a lot better. And so for that, I can watch it and I don't feel bad. I'll be honest. And And let's just jump to that then. This idea that he's too evil and let me see where this is from The Guardian. I'll just read a little bit of this. It is possible that a stronger show would have emerged if John Paul had been made a little less relentlessly monstrous. He exercises his cruelty without, it seems, much discrimination. He humiliatingly refers to Eva's infertility in public. He snaps at Ursula's son, who has Down syndrome, when the boy tries to hug him. And these are even before we move on to his larger machinations. Okay, I don't want to go any more there because it'll give up some of the plot for...
But I think as much as like we're going to talk about how fantastic the actresses are in the series, like I think Claes Bang, who plays John Paul, like we have to give him credit for like just being so excellent at being this evil man. Like he just plays the role perfectly.
Well, I just think that the ways that they write him, the things that he does, could be considered small things. He's so passive aggressive, and it's so hard to pin it on him. And you can see why they get upset because this is their sister. But from the outside, it just looks like he's a loving husband.
Exactly. Like he does this amazing job of portraying this character that's like, he's like we all know men that are shades of John Paul or have known men in our lives, like who on the outside to everybody are just like charming, like get along with everybody and likable and everything. But like on the other side have, a dark side to them or like aren't that nice. And I think he did such a great job of like portraying that duality.
I also just think he's straight up a sociopath. So in that way,
well, that's another way of putting it.
The character for sure. Yeah.
The character.
Well,
yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I think there is something really, and I'm so grateful that we're starting to see sort of like the nuances of, and the spectrum of like just domestic violence and abuse, like that it's not always, this sort of situation where someone is being constantly physically assaulted, but like the long-term violence of, emotional manipulation and verbal intimidation. And that, at one point Eva talks about, just how Grace has become so much smaller and he's sucked the life out of her. And I think that is, for so long, that was like just normalized and invisible to so many people, but like it was the experience of countless women and I'm sure some men and lots of other folks. But like, we just didn't think about financial abuse as an element of abuse, and I think like our definitions have gotten much more accurate as we've had like sort of more more talking about this. It's less stigmatized and women are able to, and a lot of people who've experienced domestic abuse are talking about like how it sort of ends up happening to them. Because I think it can be so slow. And this, I would assume like John Paul and Grace, when we meet them, have a 12-year-old daughter. Mm-hmm. Like this man has been a part of their lives for, it seems, a very long time. And it's now reaching this, really, really awful tipping point.
And I think also the way they cast him is he's very good looking and very charming too.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
But I also think like you also get a sense of, because like you sometimes, think of these men as like, like they're so unpleasant to be around. Like how can their families like live with them or handle this? And the show kind of gives you a picture of like maybe one explanation of like how they can have a family that seemingly supports them.
Well, because it's not relentless cruelty, right? Like it's like there's like a lot of sort of like nice things that are actually deeply controlling, and what he demands of Grace in her performance of wifely duties. I mean, I gotta say that first episode and the nonstop calling her Mammy.
Oh my goodness!
I know.
So
I just wanted to like crawl out of my skin every time he says that in the series, which is a lot.
Yeah.
I had a great aunt and uncle. They're both deceased now. Were they great or great? I think it was just great. Anyway, and he was great. She was terrible. And she was not like the direct blood relative. Anyway, that's not really the point. But she was so awful. And again, really nice to strangers who weren't related to her. To most of the rest of us, she was just terrible. And but she was seemingly a fine partner to my uncle. Anyway, but she referred to him all the time as her boyfriend and daddy.
Ooh.
These were not people who had children.
Ooh.
These were not people who had children.
Okay. Mm.
And it was so gross. And my skin crawls even thinking about it now. But I mean, it's so fascinating to me to think about the dynamics of someone who does have a cruel, abusive personality and how they weaponize the targets of their kindness, even if it's just like not true kindness, just like, you know, oh God, anyway, this show, spectacular.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Like, and John Paul, like, incredible character. And I don't think, I mean, again, I haven't watched it all, so maybe you guys can speak to whether he's like genuinely relentlessly monstrous. But I think that there are lots of people who are going to watch this show and also be like, well, you know, he wasn't that bad. There weren't constant black eyes and knocked out teeth and like horrific, you know, all kinds of other things. But like, no, he is.
I think they portray his psychological cruelty to an extent where I would be shocked if there was anyone at the end of watching this who was like, yeah, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
It just
he
is
deserved
relentless.
a second chance.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, in the actor, Grace, Anne Marie Duff is so good at just that slow shrinking to the point where we can see it. And just, we were discussing before, normalizing. She has just so normalized the behavior of this man in her life. And if it means giving up her sisters who, you know, mean the world to her, that's okay. This is what's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. This isn't, you know, I don't think it's a spoiler, but like the most sort of sad moment to me of the series was just seeing like the way her daughter at one point in the series really pities her.
Yeah.
Like seeing her doing her housework.
Yeah.
And
what do you do? Doesn't she ask her, what do you do?
Yeah. That was the most heartbreaking moment for me.
I think also for me, I think this was in the first episode. So it broke my heart watching him manipulate her out of going for that swim with her
it's
sisters
heartbreaking.
That she had done every year of her life. And he tricks her into drinking the champagne. And he knows that she would have that's where you really see this is a sociopath. He is taking such pain out of her sadness. And this was going to be the first time to bring her daughter. And it was going to be a big deal. And it was just, brutal. And I felt like this is a very unusual show because that hadn't occurred just watching the subtle cruelty of this person.
Yeah. And so this is something I was kind of thinking about last night while watching it with, rewatching the first two episodes with Grandma, and Carlos, is thinking about like, so I'm watching this show and I am so excited that this character is dead. I feel genuine pleasure that this character, and I get that it's fantasy, you know, and it's a fantasized outcome. But like I started to think about like, God, I'm actually like really anti-prison. I'm really anti-death penalty. But I'm watching this and I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to see how many different ways this guy doesn't die, but then finally does die. And I thought, what's happening to me?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's fine to have like that kind of outlet. Like that's how I don't murder people in real life. Probably, right? Like that. Is that
as my therapist says, having the feelings is not the problem.
Good.
Right?
Thank you.
Wow, that was our introspective moment.
That's
of the
great.
podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
You
good.
got it. Yeah, we can underline that.
Yeah. But like, do you guys watch it and at any point do you feel bad for like, or do you want him dead? Like, because like I don't think he could ever really be like there's not really like our society is not built to necessarily rehabilitate a man like this.
I'll put it this way. It breaks my heart that there are so many good people out there that die. You know, it breaks my heart.
Yes.
So conversely, the fact that so many truly evil, sociopathic, if that's a word, drains on the planet, on everybody else's lives continue to live, that upsets me, that imbalance. And who am I to say, you might ask? Who am I to say? Well, that is my value judgment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, as I was watching it, I was thinking, like, John Paul is kind of like this amalgamation of just like all the like hateful men that you come across in society. And I think, like, as a concept, the idea of killing that type of personality was satisfying to me.
Yeah,
like,
maybe the archetype of that is like is what I can wish death upon. Because I mean, in his character's death, you know, it is a blow to the patriarchy, which is good. Like the most cruel and awful and evil parts of the patriarchy. So that's good because he is homophobic and racist and he's all kinds of things as well as abusive.
Well, and as the show progresses, you'll see how he benefits, you know, in all fronts of his life from the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's an interesting interview here from Shondaland. I don't know. I'm going to mangle the last name of Shannon Hebert, maybe? Let's hope that's right. And Sandra asks, there's a moment at the end of the series where the character Ursula says, you should all just come clean and tell the police about John Paul's abuse and why you all wanted him to die. And your character Eva responds with, yeah, let's try that, because that always works for women. Did you have a specific message you wanted to convey about women abuse and trauma you were developing the show? And Sherigan Horgan responds, yeah. And the responses women have had to it, that it is a cathartic watch at the moment, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. It's a kind of metaphor for what's going on, that righteous religious men in power can be taken down if the sisterhood comes together. I wanted to flag all those things. I mean, it is the case that women aren't believed. When you think about the amount of rapes that are reported and go absolutely nowhere, there's a real fear to report them. Why even bother is the sentiment for the most part.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, I'm not there yet, obviously, in the series, but like, I absolutely resonate with everything that she has said there and with what Eva says in context of the show.
Yeah, that'll work out.
Yeah,
let's just try that. Yeah, exactly.
Because the justice system for sure is actually fair and equitable.
Yeah. No, I mean, it does, it does, you know, you have to really, I do think it's an interesting show as it does ask a lot of you. You know, how do you feel? Like Black comedies always do that to you.
Yeah. I was also thinking a lot about how, you know, like they also talk about this kind of unsolvable issue of like, if someone in your family starts dating or gets married to someone that you absolutely abhor, like, and there's not really anything you can do about it, and you just have to accept them as part of your family. And you know, it just makes you really think about, like you're saying at the beginning of the podcast, Adabs, about like not being able to choose who your in-laws are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that so far I've seen in the first 2 episodes, which I think is really lovely, is that obviously they hate this man. Grace knows that they hate this man. Grace, through all kinds of external manipulations by this man, and also of her choosing to a certain extent, she fell for him for whatever reason, and he has, you know, victimized her throughout their marriage. The sisters haven't given up on her, and they still have an active resistance to JP, which I really appreciate seeing depicted. but that they still want to surround her with like as much love as they can. I know that Ursula comes the closest in the first 2 episodes of being like, well, Grace is complicit in her own abuse.
Mhm.
And I think Eva attempts to like sort of correct that sort of like, you know, really flawed idea that we all have, or not we all have, but that a lot of people have, that like, well, if it's a bad man, then you just leave. And like, that's, you know, there's a lot of things that go into why women don't leave. And I think we've talked about those a lot over the years. But like, I thought it was so powerful to see the sisters still just like trying so hard to not let JP win. Like they talk about, oh, now we're down to 4. Now it's just the 4 of us. But like, they're not ever going to like let that be the case. Like they're going to fight for Grace until the last possible minute. And they're going to fight for Blana too. And I thought that was really wonderful and powerful. And like, you don't have to like, just yelling at Grace is piling on your own violence on her. Like that's not helpful.
No, they still have him at all the family functions. He's still there. He's still invited because that's important to their sister. So exactly.
So I thought that was like really fascinating to sort of see. And I mean, I'm very interested as to how it's going to unfold, and with what you guys have just said about like the like intense psychological cruelty and like how it sounds like is attempting to sort of really like, I guess like the other thing is his hatred for all of these women. Like obviously he doesn't like women and wants to control them and all sorts of things. But like in the minute where we get a glimpse of his own mother in the first episode, where he's like, Mammy or whatever, or first or second episode, whatever. And she answers because she like rouses herself from the couch and looks sort of, you know, disheveled and messy. And he cruelly is like, just like, not you. And like is talking to his wife, whom he has. Because, yeah, I mean, you look for, you know, an abusive man is going to be unlikely to actually treat his mother as a human being. And it's an incredible how that happens. But I thought it was really fascinating, like to just even get a glimpse of JP's own family. Because like otherwise, even in the sermon when they're like, or the church and the christening, we don't see any JP's family at all. Like that mother shot is the only thing we get. So not a spoiler, but do we get a glimpse of any of JP's family, or is he like
lots?
Oh, okay.
Lots and lots.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
So we haven't really talked about the other half of the story with the Claflin brothers.
Oh yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty interesting story. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the idea of being insurance investigators is kind of hilarious because, like, you're going around like you're a detective, but you actually have no power whatsoever to do anything. But I thought Daryl McCormack, who played the younger brother Matthew, he's really excellent in the series too.
And he's the one in that Emma Thompson movie, to Leo Grant.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, is he the Leo Grant?
Yes, that's him.
Oh, cool. I haven't seen that, but I wanted to.
I think that would be a good one for us to do too at some point.
It would, yeah.
Yeah. So he's the other star of that. But yeah, no, he does such a great job, and the dynamic the brothers have is so fascinating.
Yeah. And funny.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, even the Teresa Claflin, the wife of Thomas, the older brother's wife, she's so excellent in her, like, even though her role is kind of relatively smaller, it's every time she's on screen, it's like she's so smart and so sassy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope she gets her. Does she get chips ever? Like that's because that's my extent of her at this point.
There is such a great sense, and from both of those family members, of protection of your family, and how important that is. So it's that responsibility of protection, I think, is fascinating. But it's interesting that they don't kind of. I don't want to say anything anymore because you haven't seen it.
Well, I mean, I think like they do a really good job of making these two brothers like full characters so that you kind of like empathize with them. And even though like you don't want, you want the sisters to, or, you want Grace to receive her payout. But at the same time, you kind of empathize with the plight these brothers are in with their company and the fact that they're actually kind of right. And
but we don't know. That's the great
like
thing.
it would be easy to make insurance salesmen to be like unsympathetic, like people you don't really care about at all.
I also really appreciate, I don't know if this will come into play at all, but like just the fact that Grace Eva and Grace and all the sisters, like their parents have passed away. It sounds like the Clapham brothers have like this dead dad as a commonality. We're still sort of dealing with like their grief, and that keeps bubbling up in all of these different ways that like is both, sort of moments of humor and moments of sadness, and it never goes away. Like they never forget it as part of these characters' backstories or like their shared history, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know what else I found too about the show, and it shouldn't really feel this way, but it was a cozy watch just because I love spending time with the Garvey sisters. I just love hanging out with them. I love that house that they have. I love the houses that all of them have. I think when you really start to like a show a lot, it's all the details. I love the fact that each one of them, their homes is so different. Their wardrobes are so different. Their whole entire existence is quite different. And I really appreciate that. And I have to say, I'm just such a massive fan of Sharon Horgan. So whatever she does, pretty much, I'll be there for it.
I've never watched Catastrophe.
Oh, so brilliant.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. But I've never watched it, but I've heard nothing but great things about it. So
yeah,
I'm excited to check it out at some point.
What else has she been or written in? Or been in?
There's a show about, I can't remember the title of it, where she plays bartenders. I'm just trying to see all of her projects here. Everybody's talking about Jamie dating Amber, How to Build a Girl, Military Wives, Game Night. So, and then television, she's done a whole lot of television. Those were all movies that she's been in. So definitely, I would say we could do a whole episode just on Sharon Horgan.
Do you have so I think I've thought about this a lot. I would say that I've only seen 2 episodes, so I know you guys will have different answers.
Which sister? Are we doing which sister are you?
I am, I think, an Eva with a BB rising. I gotta say. Okay. Yeah.
With a BB rising. That's an interesting, let me think about that for a second. I definitely feel a little
I don't even know what that means. What rising means, but I think for me, Eva and Bieber are the two I most relate to.
Yeah.
I'll probably say Ursula, and but hoping to be more Eva.
I love these answers, you guys. I mean, I have certainly been a bit Grace in the past. Like I have done the thing where sort of like a dude made me small for a while, and it was not great until I finally figured that out for myself. Wasn't even a romantic relationship, which is even worse. Somehow in my brain, I'm like, I wasn't even getting anything really good out of it. But anyway, not that it wouldn't necessarily been good if it was romantic, but anyway, just to say, so I have been a bit of Grace in the past, but blissfully, I made it through my small Grace period and have put her to rest.
Do you have a theory on how Jean-Paul meets his demise? Just so you can say it here, and we'll see because we know, so we can't make any guesses.
Oh yeah, I guess you guys do know.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm kind of actually thinking that even though. So what I've put together from the first 2 episodes, and again, this is partly only because I rewatched them a second time. I missed the first time around, where the insurance, one of the insurance brothers, says there've been 4 claims and a string of bad luck, and so I'm anticipating that we're going to see John Paul at least 3 attempts on his life. That the sisters I assume each attempt gets like an extra sister added to the plot. Or added to the attempt or whatever. I kind of am anticipating that maybe none of the sisters kill him, and that it's actually the neighbor next door. That's what I'm thinking right now.
That's a reasonable guess.
It is.
Yeah. That neighbor next door, I just realized right now, ding, ding, ding. He's so good in this other really brief Irish-Canadian co-pro about the first photographers who do those Victorian still life portraits with like your dead family members.
Oh.
I'll look it up. It's also a dark comedy and a crime thing, and it's very good.
Oh, okay. That sounds really good. I like him. I've seen him in a bunch of movies. There is a really unusual filmmaker out of England called Ben Wheatley who's done a number of really odd films, and he's starred in all of them. Like there's about 4 of them, and they're all worth watching. Ben Wheatley films.
Okay.
Oh, and the show that I'm referring to that Michael Smiley was in is called Dead Still. 6-part Irish-Canadian television drama. It's great. It's truly great. But oh God, you guys. So that's my theory. So I'm glad neither of you gave anything away about whether or not I'm right. I'm thrilled about this. I am very excited for when we're going to be able to check in and I'll be able to find out everything you all know. Because I wish I weren't in the middle of a very intense deadline because I would just devour it all.
I did. I binged this series. Well, I caught up. Actually, I caught up, so I had to wait weekly.
Oh.
That's the one thing because I watched it once it was all out, and I found that there's 10 episodes and they are like an hour long each. Like, so I just found that maybe the story dragged on a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I don't disagree with you. There could have been, yeah.
I'm prepared for that. I have but you know what? I mean, it's such a pleasurable world to spend time in that I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, that's the only reason I would give it a pass for that. I agree with you. The definite plot points could have been more quickly summed up, but I loved hanging out with them. I loved just hanging out with those Garvey sisters, and I would go to that 40-foot anytime. Yeah.
I'm curious about what the second season is going to hold. And I understand I won't know what that is really until I get to the end of this one.
Yeah.
And we are saying nothing.
Great. I love it. I'm just so glad we did this, and I really love it. Oh, I guess it pops.
Pops. Yeah, really big pops for me too.
Yeah, it pops.
Well, that was simple. That was easy.
That was easy, simple, no nonsense. My recommendation is thematically related, in kind of a sad way. But so I'm just gonna recommend this movie that I saw at TIFF, and it will be at the Whistler Film Festival, and then it will be released wide in 2023. It'll be released in the States on December 30th, apparently, and it's a Canadian. They call it a thriller, but I think that's a bit exaggerated. It's certainly very tense. But it is about a young woman who's trapped in an abusive relationship that is, not an exclusively violent abusive relationship, physically violent one, but sort of in the same way that psychological cruelty, the just horrible treatment, the sort of performance of a good boyfriend, but is actually awful. And how it starts to sort of physically manifest in her, and how it isolates her from her best friends. So the movie is called Alice, Darling, and it stars Anna Kendrick. And it's it's not the easiest watch, but it's really worthwhile. It's very good. It is directed by Mary Nighy, who is Bill Nighy's daughter. The Love Actually dude, and he's been in lots of other stuff, but Mary Nighy is an actor and a director, and I think this is maybe her big directorial debut. Yeah, it's her directorial debut, and I went in watching it and not knowing exactly what to expect, but being really moved by it, and it also has one of the best sing-along and most real sing-along moments in film that I've seen in a long time, which was really nice because it's it is also a story about like three women coming together to try and like, you know, that sisterhood sort of defeat the patriarchy kind of thing.
Kind of thing. I like that.
That sounds good. I'm going to recommend this. Okay, don't turn your ears off because I'm saying the word Western, but it's it's called The English.
Ah, yes.
It stars Emily Blunt and Chaske Spencer, and it's a revisionist Western drama series that's on Amazon Prime, and it centers the story around Emily Blunt's character's point of view, so a woman's point of view, and Indigenous American, is kind of helping her find the person who killed her son, and so it's kind of turning the Western on its head, and it's just beautiful to watch. Like the cinematography is amazing, and I haven't finished watching it, but so far it's really good.
Is it a TV show or a film? Sorry, I missed that part.
It's a TV series.
Okay.
It's kind of like a while ago I recommended Godless on Netflix, starring Michelle Dockery, and it's kind of along the same lines. Like it's this new sort of genre of revisionist Western drama I'm really into.
Nice.
All right. And my recommendation is a book. It's called Olive Again. And it is the sequel to Elizabeth Strout's Olive Kitteridge. Now, Olive Kitteridge came out in 2008. And then this book came out in 2019. I'm only just now getting around to it. I have, for some unknown reason, I secondhand bookshop a lot, and I find lots of copies of Olive Kitteridge. It is a very popular book, and I always hand them out. And now I'm finally going to get to the sequel, and I've already started it, and it's just as good as the last. So the first book is a series of short stories that all connect with Olive Kitteridge, and the second book is the same idea. So just different characters. Sometimes you're with Olive, but she makes her way into all of these stories. And she's a fascinating character. So I'm really enjoying this book.
Cool.
Excellent.
Well, these are great recommendations. I am thrilled for all of us. And I'm so glad that we got to like talk about Bad Sisters.
And your iron replacement.
You know,
I feel like you do seem like ever so slightly more energetic. I can see it already.
Hopefully it's really starting to take hold. And by 4 weeks from now, you'll just be like, who was that ghost?
Take it down a notch.
Yeah. Come on.
Dial
it
down. Yes. Back it up, Big Rig.
Yeah.
Stop it.
All the cliches.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. You can hang out with us on social media. Let's face it, who knows if Twitter will exist by the time this episode comes out. But, Facebook and Instagram, at some point in the future, we will, post more and be more active. But for now, hanging out in this space is nice, too. So you could rate and review us 5 stars.
5
on Apple
stars.
Podcasts.
Thank you. And thank you, as always, to Andrea Gin, our co-host and producer, who puts this whole thing together. And I hope we didn't have too many flubs this time. Maybe my trying to describe Ben Wheatley will be edited out. So that's good.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I think to air makes us human, Lisa.
I think that's nice, too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.